Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the Stanton County Board of Commissioners regular meeting for April 15, 2013 to order at this time at 7 p.m. I'd like to welcome everyone that's in the audience tonight and those that might be watching on closed circuit tomorrow night. And we'll welcome our media. Ian, nice to have you back. New man with the News and Press, and of course Leon, we always welcome you. We have one addition to the agenda. Would be a resolution for the National Day of Prayer, and we'll put that as number 5 and change the consent agenda to number 6 if that's okay with the board. Any other adjustments or amendments to the agenda? Here none, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Have a motion by Commissioner Dennis to approve the agenda as amended, and a second by Commissioner Donovan. Any further discussion? Here none, all in favor say aye. Those opposed no, and the ayes have it. Thank you. Our first agenda item tonight is, oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. This time I'll call on Commissioner Donovan for the invocation. I'm sorry.
As we were preparing for our meeting this afternoon, many of us were paying attention to the television. Another day in our country where many people exclaim, "Oh my God," because we have had another time of violence in our country. I was reminded of Commissioner Morton's devotion not too long ago when he quoted 2 Chronicles 7:14 that says, "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, I will heal their land." And I thought today that on days like today, many of us say, "Oh my God," but it's the other days of the year that we forget to acknowledge our Maker and ask Him to guide us and help us and protect us. We are looking at a resolution for a National Day of Prayer tonight, and I hope that that resolution will not only encourage us to recognize the prayers that we deliver on that particular day, but will also encourage us to do so every day of the year. Will you pray with me now? Father, we look to you because we know that every good and perfect gift comes from you. We know that each and every blessing that we receive begins in your heart before it is delivered into our hand. We ask this evening that you would help us as we seek to be responsible for your gifts of grace and love and mercy. That in return that we might seek peace and that we might be careful to love and to care for our fellow man. We ask that you would bless public servants tonight, not only in Boston where they're hard at work seeking to put together lives, but that we would recognize and thank public servants everywhere, every day, for the things that they do, especially the emergency management folks who rush into harm's way and who seek to care for those who absolutely don't know what hit them, whether that be in a fire, in a home, or in an automobile accident, or in some expression of violence. And we ask, Father, that you would mold our minds so that we would recognize that we have too much violence in our country. It's not a gun issue, it's not a knife issue, it's not a bomb issue, it's a violence issue, Father. And help us as we seek to remedy that. Lord, we do pray that you would give us guidance and wisdom in everything that we do, and that the decisions that this board makes tonight would in some way improve the lives of people where we live. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan. Yes, sir.
I just wonder if I can say a few words about today also.
Go ahead.
Real quick. Just we had a lot of calls at the store about if there were local runners that participated in the Boston Marathon. Generally, we have 3 or 4 runners. I know Bill Josie's been up there before, and we did not have any local runners this year running out there. Okay, but Mike Bellwood from the Government Affairs with Alcoa, he participated today, and he finished 10 minutes before the bomb went off. And Mike Hobbs, who he works with the IAC, though Collins Nakeman, he comes here quite a bit and runs with some local runners. He finished about 30-40 minutes before, so I think I heard he's okay, and I know Mike's okay, and we just prayers for all the other folks that got injured today, and just hope for the best for the future.
Thank you for that. Okay, we'll go ahead with our agenda now, and our first agenda item is a proclamation from our 911 telecommunications, and Karen McDaniels will be the presenter. Welcome, Karen.
Good evening. It is an honor for me to come before you guys tonight to recognize our Stanley County 911 telecommunicators. And I have asked that you adopt a proclamation that proclaims this week, the week of April 14th through the 20th, as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. And also that we recognize and honor our telecommunicators who work in Stanley County for the professionalism and efforts in the public safety field. Although they are not seen, the voices of our men and women who work in this field are the link between our citizens, visitors, and field personnel. As they are the first responders in public safety, they are the first ones to make a difference in the lives of callers. And in speaking of the incident we had today at the Boston Marathon, I've thought about the telecommunicators who would have taken those calls today and answered all, I'm sure, numerous, unimaginable to us, but numerous 911 calls, and the stress that it puts them under because, again, they're not seen, but they are heard, and they offer voices of wisdom, they offer voices of comfort, and that's why we come before you to ask that you adopt this proclamation. I have two telecommunicators with us tonight to represent our center, and I'm going to go ahead and ask them to stand and then ask you to read
Please
the proclamation. Okay, Dave Vassar and Ashley Shue.
Welcome, both of you, and we appreciate the job that you do, and certainly we cannot begin to know what you go through during the day. And at this time, I will read the proclamation for you. Whereas 911 is the national emergency number for people in emergency situations, and the 911 telecommunicator's voice is the first assurance that help is on the way. And whereas 911 professionals regularly meet the challenges of extremely stressful situations with calmness and efficiency. Whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of these emergency responders is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the 911 communications center. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the heart of public safety, providing assistance as the first responder before any other emergency services arrive on scene. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are a vital link for our emergency responders by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety telecommunicators contribute substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of injuries and illness on a daily basis. And whereas each telecommunicator has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of his and her daily job duties. Now therefore be it resolved that the Stanley County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim the week of April 14 through 20, 2013 as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in Stanley County in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our region's citizens, visitors, and emergency responders safe. We thank you all. This adopted the 15th day of April 2013, and it will be signed by the commissioners, and you'll get a copy of that. And once again, thank you so much. Does anyone have a comment that they'd like to make? All right, entertain a motion. Commissioner Shudo makes a motion to accept the proclamation, and seconded by Commissioner Dennis. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no, and the ayes have it. Thank you very much for your work. And our next agenda item is presentation by Dr. Terry Griffin with the Stanley County Schools and Mr. Bill Josie. And we welcome you, and they will be talking about the school's budget for the coming year. Welcome.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to be here with you tonight, Mr. Lucas and Chairman McIntyre and the remainder of the commissioners. On behalf of the school system, I would like to say to the 911 operators also, thank you because they are always such an assistance to us in those times that we need to call out for their assistance also. So on behalf of the school system, thank you very much for the support that you give us. Well, it's that time of the year again with budget coming around the corner for the upcoming 13-14 school year. And so tonight, Mr. Josie and I would like to come and share a bit of information with you on the groundwork and the preparation that we have begun in anticipation for the next school year. Before you, you see our vision statement that reflects our commitment to ensure success for every student while improving the quality of life for our community. If you all got it on the screen, or wait, okay, I'll wait. I'm sorry. Okay, we'll try to walk you through it. It was a lot prettier on the computer, but we will do what we need to do. Technology is great when it works, right? Okay, I'm going to follow the small one also, so that maybe try to do both at the same time so I can keep up with where you are. All right, on that first page then, you see the bottom slide there of the threesome, our vision statement, and again, to ensure success for all students in our classrooms across the district. At the top of the next page, you will see our mission statement, schools plus community equals success, and again, I believe that reflects our desire for transparency and cooperation in terms of being good stewards of the taxpayers' money in Stanley County. We are in the process of updating our strategic plan, and our strategic plan has 5 core areas. The new updated plan, again, begins with future-ready students, whether it be career or college-ready. We will continue to focus on 21st century professionals, safety in our schools, and our leadership for communication, innovation, and collaboration, and then 21st century facilities, which we deliver our instructional programs in. Moving to the next slide at the top of the third page, just a few statistics, and they would have been flying in and twirling on the screen for you to see. But just some information, as you are very well aware, we have 21 schools, 14 elementary, 4 middle, 4 high, in our early college and our alternative school. We have approximately 46% of our students on free lunches this year, 8.2% on reduced lunch, with a total of 54.2% either on a combined free or reduced lunch. Our current enrollment is approximately 8,700 students with 1,082 staff. We are the 39th largest school district out of 115, just to give you a little bit of perspective of how we stack up with other school districts in the state. And of course, as you are aware, we are the largest employer in Stanley County. You also see our demographic breakdown in the bottom corner of the slide there, with white being our largest demographic group, followed by our Black, Hispanic, Asian, and then other group. The first area that we're going to talk about in terms of funding tonight is our federal funding. And of course, you're very familiar with the sequestration and the impact that it could have on agencies all across North Carolina. At its worst potential, or the worst impact that it would have on Stanley County schools, would be 8.2%. which would equate to approximately $500,000. To be exact, Mr. Josie has teased that out at $498,000 for Stanley County schools. Now, obviously, the area that this would have the greatest amount of impact would be our Title I program and our Exceptional Children's program. And again, at this point, we aren't sure, so we will continue to watch and monitor that as this continues to move forward with the state and federal budget. Of course, the EduJob is a type of federal funding, stimulus funding, that is now gone. Would like to stress that in Stanley County Schools, with our initial allotment of EduJobs funding was in the 11-12 school year, and as indicated here, we received $1,754,934 during the 11-12 school year in EduJobs funding. During the current school year, 12-13, we received $124,715, and moving into the next school year, we will receive no EduJob funding. So again, this was a stimulus money that came down through, allocated through the state level. Of course, federal funding is our smallest slice of funding, but yet a school system our size, $500,000 certainly has a large impact on us, even if it is small in the big overview picture. The largest slice of funding for Stanley County Schools, of course, is our state funding. And Mr. Josie has a graph that he's going to pass out. We knew when we started the computer up, it was a different version of PowerPoint, so it did not come through on the slide, but we didn't know it was going to, whole thing would be completely absent. So I'll give you just a minute to get this particular graph in front of you. Like I said, state funding composes the largest slice of our funding source. And the bar graph that you've got in front of you shows public school funding and the fact that it has declined from the state level. Beginning in the 2008-9 school year to the far left, you can see that Stanley County, as well as every other school system in the state, received $5,767 per student. The following year, in 9-10, I'm not going to read all these numbers to you, but you will see the state funding actually declined to $5,478. However, another source of federal money, again, that was funneled through the state level, was called ARA stimulus money, and the state matched that at $186 per student. So again, as an LEA, we received $5,665 per student. And you can trace that down all the way down to the current school year, 2012-13. What you will see is this current school year, we did not receive any ARA or federal funding, but what we did receive per student was the $5,355, and this represented a $412 reduction in funding per student since the 2008-9 school year. So again, just an overview from the state level there. The next thing that I wanted to mention to you is the idea of negative reserve, and I'm sure you've probably heard, and if you've been listening to a lot of the budgetary webinars and updates coming out of Raleigh, negative reserve and bills that would reduce the discretionary reduction. And essentially what this is the school systems are allocated dollars or chunks of money, and then we are required to give back chunks of money based on the number of students that we have enrolled. And that is called the discretionary reduction. And it's called discretionary because we get to choose where we're going to make those cuts from. Again, sometimes at the state level, they say, well, there have been no cuts in teachers, but then when you look at the fact that almost 9% of our budget is in personnel, obviously it does come out of salaries. We are cutting positions. So it is built into the budget. And if you go over to the next page, page 5 at the top, and again, I know this slide the picture there is very small, and I apologize. We'll try to get some bigger pictures over to you so Tyler can send those maybe on out to you in a packet. But what you see here is the North Carolina's history of the negative reserve, and what you can't see is the impact that it had on Stanley County, or it has had in Stanley County. Beginning with the far left, the negative reserve for the state of North Carolina was $41 million during the 2008-9 school year. And during the 2009-10 school year for Stanley County schools, it was $1,434,000 and $434,018. And I apologize too. I was going to depend on the screen here, and that I don't have a larger one to go by. But again, you can see it reached its highest amount during the 2011-12 school year. And that particular year, the discretionary cut for Stanley County Schools was $2,572,871. Now, in terms of comparing next year with this current school year, we will actually have $25,263 less as a part of that built-in discretionary funding, unless, again, something would happen at the state level where they would reduce that amount. So again, it's kind of like that would be nice if it happens, but again, we go ahead and plan for the built-in discretionary cuts that are already there. So with all this in mind, those cuts that we know are there, we really don't have any control over. We have to wait and see what happens. What does it mean for Stanley County Schools? Well, quite honestly, it means that Stanley County Schools may be facing budget cuts for the 6th consecutive year. And I wanted to stop and kind of sidetrack just a minute and talk about what has Stanley County Schools done to help mitigate the state and federal cuts over the past several years. And now on your handout, if you're on page 6, up at the top, very top slide up there, since 2008-9, we have closed 3 schools. Our total certified employees, or individuals that we employ as certified staff, has decreased by 16.1%, and that equates to 122 positions. Our total classified employees has decreased by 16.6%, or 67 positions. And again, there was no reason that they both be the 16%. It just happened to turn out that way. One of the other areas that to me is just, I don't know, it really drove home when I saw this number is this last little bullet here, that classroom instructional supplies allotment from the state has decreased by 69%. And that is from $970,170 to $300,530. And again, that is, a cut of approximately 69%. So again, it makes you understand when you see our teachers out taking money out of their pockets, buying supplies and materials and things for your classrooms, that is part of the reason why. And again, our teachers are so dedicated to doing what's best for children, and most of them rather just buy it themselves than do without. But again, this represents the amount of reduction from the state reductions in instructional supplies. But even so, with the cuts that we have had in place from the state level, if you look at this next little slide, the point being, our teachers and our instructional staff continue to deliver a quality education here in Stanley County. This first area in reading, we've had a concentrated effort on literacy over the past 7 years during my tenure as assistant superintendent, because I'm a firm believer if a child can't read, they're never going to push themselves to any higher level. So we've really put a lot of effort in the area of literacy. Since the 2007-8 school year, our reading scores, overall reading scores, percentage of children on grade level in grades 3 through 8 has increased by 17%. In the area of math, since the 2007-8 school year, the children on grade level in math have increased by 13%. And then in English and Algebra 1, we've made some slight improvements also, but again, a concerted effort has really been placed in the area of literacy. The next thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is positions that were cut or not filled over the past 4 years. And if you'll move on over to page 7. In the last 4 years, of course, we have reduced our staff by 3 principals, and that equates to the 3 schools that was closed, but we've also reduced by 1 assistant principal. We have 102 less teachers and 52 less teacher assistants. We have 8 less guidance counselors and 6 less media specialists. At one time, we had a district reading specialist that was serving the whole district. We cut that position. We've lost 15 clerical positions across the district. And then we also lost a district-wide response to intervention specialist. So again, just to point out some of the reductions that we have made at the district level here in Stanley County to absorb the state and federal cuts that we've had to deal with. Other reductions in the school system, and again, the last little slide there on the bottom of page 7. We also cut our alternative program we currently have Stanley Academy at the old North Albemarle facility, and it serves students in grades 9 through 12. 2 years ago, we had what was called AMAP, or an alternative program that serves students in grades 6 through 8, and we have eliminated that. This past year, we eliminated funding for field trips other than those that are built into the instructional budget. We reduced our supplement for coaches by 20.5%, and we reduced our allocation for athletics, band, music, and art by 50%. And at one time, we paid our teachers stipends for doing kindergarten camps during the summer, and we eliminated those stipends. But again, just a testament to our teachers, we still offer kindergarten camp, but they come and volunteer their time to provide those kindergarten camps. And then again, we've certainly taken reductions in the area of textbooks and not purchased any complete textbook adoptions in the past 7 years. Challenges now as we move into the upcoming budget year. And again, there's going to be a small graph here, but again, I think you can get the overall gist of it. Since the 2003-04 school year, in the 2003-04 school year, we had 9,778 students, just under 10,000 students. This current school year, we have 8,745 students. So we have lost approximately 1,000 students over the past 10 years. I would like to say that our projected enrollment for next year, that our initial allotment from DPI will be based on 8,763 students, and that's only a few more students, but we'll take everyone that they're funding and assigning on. So again, our declining enrollment. Now the next, if you go to the slide right under that, and again, I apologize for the colors not being there, but one of the questions we started asking is, where are students going? And when we're comparing ourselves to the state, we always want to be above the state average. Well, on this slide, we want to be below the state average. In Stanley County, we serve approximately 88% of all the school-aged children. In other words, if you take the whole group of children that are eligible to attend school, 88% of those children attend Stanley County schools. So the other approximate 12% are divided among the following three areas. Starting on your far left, you have homeschools, and in the first column, that represents Stanley County, and 5.6% of the eligible school-age children in Stanley County attend homeschools. The second column there represents Region 6, and that would be the 9-county region of Cabarrus, Union, Mecklenburg, Lincoln, Rowan, just this area here. And again, you can see we are slightly above the regional average. The regional average is 4.4, and the state average is 4.8. Now, the next cluster of bars represents private schools. And again, we're where we want to be. We're below the state and the regional averages there. 4.1% of our children attend private schools, as opposed to 7.6% in our region, 6 and 5.8% at the state level. And then on the far right is the public charter schools. And in Stanley County, 1.9% of those eligible to attend school-age children attend public charter school. That would be Greystone, of course, here in Stanley County. And in Region 6, 3.9% attend charter schools, and at the state average, 2.7%. So again, that gives you a little bit of an idea of, where the children in Stanley County go. And it also speaks to some of our challenges because, again, making sure that we have a strong program at the elementary and middle level is very important. But it's also important, as when I stood before you earlier talking about expanding opportunities for our children at the high school level, to have a broader area of course selections and to have courses to meet a wide range, high-achieving students, but also students who don't plan to attend a four-year university. All right, and then moving to the next slide. This little line graph basically represents a challenge across North Carolina. The top line shows the average teacher salaries in the nation. And you could see in 2003-04, the two lines were the closest. The bottom line represents the teacher salaries, average teacher salaries in North Carolina. And you can see what's happening. Instead of the gap closing, what's happened in North Carolina is the gap has widened. And again, a lot of that has been due to increases in insurance and other areas, just frozen salary scales. But North Carolina currently ranks as 46th in the nation in terms of teacher salaries. So again, it's a challenge for all districts in North Carolina. Now moving to the local funding. I'm going to tag team with Mr. Josie now, and he's going to talk to you just a little bit about our local funding. And again, the first slide here that you've got at the bottom of this page 9 is going to be very hard to see, but he's going to talk to you a little bit about the 10-year history of appropriations here in Stanley County.
Thank you, ma'am. What we've done in these next 3 slides is basically giving you a 10-year history of appropriations and how funding has occurred in Stanley County. What we chose not to present in this slide is per pupil funding, and I know I've had some one-on-one conversations with several of you concerning that, and don't necessarily believe that per pupil funding as a comparison from county to county is necessarily a fair way to compare counties, simply because what it doesn't address is a very simple concept in accounting called ability to pay. We don't have the ability to pay like a Dare County or a Buncombe County or an Orange County, but what these next 3 slides will show is that we have met the calling of the bell, which was to have a dedication to education. The first slide that you can't read in your handouts shows the operating, the capital, and the debt funding on a 10-year history, and you'll see that in just about every year there was an increase in funding. Other than going from 2008-09 down to 2012-13, which obviously that's when the bottom fell out of our economy. But what I've done on the very next slide is taken that same graph and put on top of that the ADM, which was our average daily membership. And I know you can't read those percentages, but what it shows there is that in every year other than 2, even if the county gave a cut in funding, our cut in ADM was greater. In other words, we had a declining population that was declining faster than the funding. And in most years, even though we had a declining population, funding did increase from the county. And the third slide, and what this really shows, and I know I'm just obviously preaching to the choir here with the county commissioners, is that a dedication to education is pivotal and is key in economic development. And what this shows, this is a 4-year history on percent funding increases or decreases, and it's comparing the county government to the school system. In those 4 years, the left bar is the county government, the right bar is the school system. And in every year but one, if the county, like in 2009-10, the county took a substantial cut to their own budget, yet gave an increase to the school system. 2010-11, both took a cut, but the county's cut was larger. 2011-12, the county did receive a slight increase. And then in 2012-13, both received increases, but the school systems was larger. And again, this shows the county commissioners and the county government's commitment to education. During a time of very difficult budgets, they absorbed the cut at the county level to preserve education.
Okay. you, Mr. Josie. So, moving on then, I'd like to talk about some of the investments that Stanley County Schools has made with the budget that we have been able to have historically. On the handout, and again, I'm on the top of page 11 now on your handout, we certainly have made an investment in literacy through the professional development of training all of our teachers in K-3 with reading foundations. We've put corrective reading and reading mastery, and made it a part of our reading curriculum to strengthen our reading program. In terms of the curriculum, we have invested in the Common Core and North Carolina Essential Standards professional development through the use of professional learning communities. The next slide shows that some of the things that we've been able to accomplish through the 21st Century Classroom Project. And again, I'm not going to read every one of those bullets to you there, but to say we've certainly made an investment in outfitting our classrooms so that they are 21st century ready and kids can have access to wireless technology. Now, the next thing, or the next item on your handout goes into the current budget. Of course, the current operating budget for Stanley County Schools for this current school year is $73.2 million, and we're at the top of page 12 on the handout now. Out of that $73.2 million, 83.9% of that total operating budget pays for people, and that comes in terms of salaries and benefits. And then if you break that down even further, if you take that 83.9%, which composes our people, out of that, 89.4% goes toward salaries and benefits for people that are specifically in the area of instruction. So again, the point being that Stanley County is investing most of our dollars, a large percentage of our dollars, even more than the state average in instructional positions, because the state average is 88% and we're at 89.4%. Now, the next little slide was just an overview of the operating budget. On the left, it showed revenues, and obviously our largest percent of the revenues was the large chunk. It's in pretty blue on my screen, 71%, coming from the state. And the 21%, which is the slice to the left there, that is the local, coming from you locally, as well as our grants. And then the small slice being the 8% coming from the federal. On the right side, we have our expenditures, and again, you can very easily follow the same progression there, the 63% and 21% being salaries and benefits, 8% being the other 16% being split evenly between purchase services and supplies and materials. So, now with all that background, like to move into what I'm calling the superintendent's proposed budget as we move into the 13-14 school year. Certainly, as we move into planning for the 2013-14 school year, I will say my first and always first priority will be in the area of student achievement, 21st century students, preparing our students to be career and college ready. As I spoke and gathered information from a variety of stakeholder groups, and that would be my parent advisory, teachers in the schools, principals, the Board of Education, just various groups. The number one issue or concern, priority that I heard over and over is please try to protect the student-to-teacher ratio, because it's very difficult. As classes become larger, it's more difficult for a teacher to meet the individual needs of students. Secondly, under the area of student achievement, it will be a priority to continue and focus on the expansion of classroom technology. You've already heard me come before you another night and speak on course offerings that I believe that areas that we need to improve on, so that will continue to be a priority. and to continue to focus on literacy, especially in the area of using our curriculum coaches to help our teachers implement the Common Core and the new curriculum from the state level. Now, as a part of the increase that we will be asking for this year would be to help implement the course offerings and the focused learning sites would be 4 facilitators, and that would be 1 for each of the 4 high schools, and this would be a non-certified position, an individual that would be able to facilitate students that are working from computers with their headphones on and maybe working on different courses that are being delivered online. Also, as a part of that, we would be requesting an additional $20,000 that would be used to pay our teachers stipends to work this summer to develop courses. And again, this would be to put the course content into a shell so it could be delivered via Moodle or another platform that we will be working with. We have also applied for numerous grants to help move this project along. And again, whatever you're able to give us in this area, we're going to invest it to the best possible use, and the amount we get, that combined with the grants, will determine how quickly we can move this along. We're moving forward. It's just the rate will have an impact based on our funding that we're able to get. Also, we've learned that we are going to need to add an additional occupational therapist to meet state compliance standards for caseloads. And again, we propose to do that out of our budget that we will get from the state and federal level. But just again to say it is a priority going into planning this budget. Now, under the area of student safety, I believe it's very important that we look at security systems for our high schools. And again, this would come under the area of capital funding. So we will be asking for an increase that could help us start moving toward getting a card swipe entry system in our high schools. I also believe it's important that we look at additional school resource officers in all of our middle schools. Right now, Albemarle Middle School is the only middle school that has an SRO, and I would eventually like to see them in all of my middle schools. But again, I understand that we have to do it in a pace that we can handle. So would ask to, I hope to add at least 1 SRO this coming year to serve middle schools in the district. And then again, the third bullet would be certified athletic trainers, and this is to help with the student safety in terms of athletics. And hopefully this person would also be able to be a part of the Health Academy and teach some sports safety type courses as a part of this academy. But again, we propose to do that in our state budget which we will be receiving from the state level. Other key areas that I see as a priority going into this budget is to remove the cuts that were made to our coaching supplements for this year. They were cut by 20.5% for the 12-13 school year, and this is something we will not be asking for additional dollars for because we believe that we'll be able to absorb it at the current funding level. And then to be able to reinstate the Stanley Academy teacher supplements, we completely eliminated those for this current school year. And again, those teachers and staff, they are doing the same quality of job level of performance that they have been doing, but they have a tough job, and I believe it's worth rewarding them for that extra effort that they are required to do. So the next slide, if I can catch up with where on page 14, the local funding request, this summarizes it. Again, we will be requesting the $9,377,362, the same amount that we got this year as a continuation budget. And then we're asking for an additional $136,468,000 for the Focused Learning Academies. And again, that would be specifically for the Focused Learning Academies for the 4 facilitators, and the additional dollars would be used to pay teachers stipends for course development. And then the $57,038 for an additional school resource officer for our middle schools, for a total of $9,570,868 requested in this particular area of the budget. Now, the next area that we would go into would be the capital needs, and again, we'll be requesting there the same as in our continuation. And with our capital budget, obviously we solicit input from the principals and the schools, and then our facilities committee takes those needs that have been submitted and basically prioritizes those in terms of the need in the district. So again, we would be asking for the continuation amount of $1,725,000, and then the secure access solutions that we would, again, depending on what price we're able to negotiate, but it looks like it's running about $65,000 per school, depending on the number of actual doors that are in a particular high school. So we're thinking that would cover at least 2 high schools and possibly 3, again, depending on what we're able to negotiate there. So we would be asking for $1,850,000 in terms of the 13-14 funding under the capital outlay request. And finally, these last 2 slides, again, not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we know that school food service is operates independently in terms of their budget. But just to say, effective in July of 2011, under Section 205, the Healthy Hungry Free Kids Act of 2010, under this act, federal act, basically what it means is that paying students must match the federal reimbursement rate. So in other words, in order to avoid supplanting, you must charge at least the amount for your paying students that you're getting for reimbursement. So what we found is I think all the schools in our systems in our region had to make an adjustment, I think with maybe the exception of 2, and I'm kind of talking in Mr. Josie's area here, so he'll hit me from behind if I say something incorrectly there. But in order to do that, we are going to need to make a 10-cent increase in our lunch prices, and I wanted to go ahead and again, we're trying to get that out front to let people know why we're doing it. It again is something that's being mandated federally. So our lunch prices will be increasing by 10 cents in the 2013-14 school year in order to comply with USDA. So again, we have no control over that. That is so we can continue to get those reimbursements. So the final slide then that you have here summarizes everything that I've already gone over, and you've got the numbers there. I wouldn't read them again, but because it is so light and it may be hard to see, I'm going to. Basically, we're asking for an increase in the local current expense appropriation budget of $193,506. That's in the far right, for a total budget of $9,570,868. And then on the capital outlay side, an increase of $125,000. And again, that is specifically for those security system installations that we would be looking at for our high schools for $1,850,000. And then what I would propose to you would be, first of all, I invite you in our schools any day. I would love to have you come and to tour schools with me anytime. But again, in terms of transparency and providing a report for the money that we're asking in terms of an increase, I would propose a biannual reporting schedule to the county commissioners in the form of a formal report or a verbal presentation that I would do, but would also ask that you come out and tour those once we get the academies up and going to see what we're doing there, and also in terms of our high school security systems. So at this time, I'll be glad to entertain questions, comments, anything that you might have for Mr. Josie, and I am call him back up here to help with those questions that you might have at this point.
Anyone have a question or comment for Ms. Smith? Dr. Smith.
Doctor? Yeah, I've got just a few things, couple things. Just curious, are there any raises for teachers in this budget?
I think there is a proposed raise. Is it 1 or 2%, Mr. Josie?
Mr. Shudo, I believe the state of North Carolina, in the governor's budget, he proposed a 1% salary increase. Obviously, if that's what goes through, we have no say in that. There's no additional raises in the budget above that.
A couple other things here. Couple of things I know with buildings. You know, y'all watched me over the years. I've been always concerned about the buildings that y'all operating under. And first of all, I think it was encouraging that later on our agenda, there's a possible sale of Central elementary school, which saves a little bit of money and getting that off the tax, possibly putting back on the tax roll. Also, I was encouraged to see where you guys are working with partnerships with various organizations, and there's a possibility that you may put the Tar Heel Challenge up at New London, which would be a nice thing. I think you're working with the school over on West Main Street with the college collaboration. And I think the college has expressed interest in Ridgecrest for putting a culinary school out there. I know they've expressed interest in possibly working with you guys on that. I think that's pretty encouraging to see the use of old buildings, because what are you going to do with an empty school building? And I was just looking at some stats I got from you, and still there's just a lot of buildings in Stanley County. Of the 19 buildings we have, there's 8 of the school buildings are under 70% capacity. So there's a lot of empty classrooms there. And there's only 4 of the 19 have above 90% capacity in the school. So I know it's not you, the school board. I hope the school board continues to work on either redistricting, or if you have to close the school. I've always been, I prefer teachers over over buildings, and I appreciate the work that you're doing in the school boards. It's a tough thing, I know, being on the school board, so I appreciate what y'all are doing. I just want to throw that out there, and I'm encouraged to see actions that are taken to help with some, to put use to some of these empty buildings.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else?
I just thought to commend.
Commissioner Morton.
I'm sorry. I just thought to commend Dr. Griffin and Mr. Josie for this report. I find it one of the clearest reports I've ever seen as far as coming from the school system. I know you put a lot of work into it, and I think I can understand it.
Thank you. Mr. Josie is a good mentor, helping lay things out so it's understandable.
And I would just echo that. And I would also thank Mr. Josie for the slide that indicates that there has been a commitment from the county commissioners. I want to thank our staff for that, both our manager and our finance person who has helped us, because we have endured some difficult financial times. But I think that slide indicates that the commissioners have maintained a commitment to trying to help the education. This is an important thing to us. We all have either attended schools here, had children attend schools here, or have grandchildren who have attended schools here, and some of them, I think, still have grandchildren in schools here. So this is an important thing for us, and I thank you for presenting that. That slide, I think, indicates our commitment to you.
Anyone else? I could just echo what everyone else has said, and been an old school hand for over 30 years, and still very dear to my heart. And to not make promises tonight, but know that we will continue to try to do everything we can to see that these things are progressed. Thank you very much.
And again, thank you. I know I took a large chunk of your time tonight, so thank you for being very gracious and hearing us out. And again, I welcome all of you to tour the schools anytime. Our schools belong to the community, and moving forward, I will continue to focus on literacy, math, and science, career college readiness through our partnerships with Stanley Community and Pfeiffer that we have here. Career exploration is near and dear as we look at ways to, open that full spectrum. And then safety has got to be a priority. So again, thank you for the opportunity to share with you this evening.
Thank you again, and I think you got your priorities in order. And the next agenda item is a discussion regarding the old Central School property. Presenter will be County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. In your packet, you actually have a letter from, or an email that came from Mark Louder, the school board's attorney. They actually on several occasions have sought offers on this, but more recently, I think in the last 6 months to a year, they advertised the building and actually retained the services of a real estate broker to help them sort of assess the market. And they're according to Mr. Louder, their asking price was $150, based on their assessment of the market in that building and the issues with that building. As you all know, we did a study. Gosh, it's probably been 2.5, 3 years ago, where we looked at the lead and the asbestos and mold issues, and there was going to be roughly $100,000 at that time to abate those issues. So that was 2 or 3 years ago. There's no telling how if any of those issues have progressed. So the actual offer that they have of $150,000 is consistent with what they were seeking. They did receive other offers. This was the highest offer. They're doing their due diligence by making sure that they come to the board and make sure that you all aren't interested in purchasing this before they move forward with accepting this offer. Once they accept this offer, they will have to post that their acceptance of this offer. They'll have to provide public notice, and there will be a 10-day notice period where upset bids could potentially occur. And so, if someone offered something less than this 150, and all of a sudden they decide, well, I got beat, but I'm gonna match that or actually go above it, and it has to be, I believe, 5% above the 150. So to upset it, you can't just go in and say, I'm going to give 151,000. It's got to be 5% above the 150. But there will be public notice of the school boards if they choose to accept this offer. I believe it's on their agenda for tomorrow evening or later this month, or even early May. I'm not exactly sure when their next meeting is, but if they choose to accept that offer, they will give that public notice. There will be that upset period, and then they'll move forward. The other thing I would note is, by state statute, the resources that they receive from the sale of this must be used to either retire current indebtedness or be used for capital outlay. So the money will go back into the school system, not necessarily in operations, but debt or capital outlays to help them with their capital outlay needs. And so with that, I'll be happy to answer any additional questions the board may have. And so this evening, really the action you're seeking is either you would like to move forward with or give notice to the schools that you're interested in purchasing this, and so that they can slow down their process of accepting this, or you would just say, thanks for the opportunity to consider this, but we're not interested, and then at that point it would go for them for further action.
Questions or comments?
Yes, I would. Do you remember, Andy, it's the sort of water, but Mr. Judge, you might remember what the offer was for that building right after we closed that thing. We had somebody interested in making apartments out of it. You remember? And I know it was a whole lot more than this, but I know that I think they asked, $1.5 million back then for it, and I thought, oh, hell, that ain't gonna never fly, but sure does look good now. It said, but maybe it was about half that, so hindsight's 20/20 though, isn't it?
Anyone else? I take that to mean that our position has not changed. So therefore, carry on. Okay. Thank you for the offer.
I make a motion
Okay.
that we are not interested in purchasing the building for the county, and that the school board can proceed with their sale.
Motion by Commissioner Shudo. Do I have a second? Have a second by Commissioner Dennis. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. And the ayes have it. Thank you very much. Our next agenda item is appointments to the Norwood Zoning Board of Adjustment. Presenter will once again be County Manager Andy Lucas. Mr. Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, you have a letter in your packet from the town of Norwood requesting that Bill Stone be reappointed and Mark Thompson be appointed to the Norwood Zoning Board of Adjustment. Mr. Thompson's application is included for your consideration, and Mr. Stone is a reappointment request.
We have the information, and what is the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Have a motion by Commissioner Dennis to approve these two appointments.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shudo. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor please say aye. Those opposed, no, and the ayes have it. Thank you very much. Next agenda item is the add-on resolution for National Day of Prayer, and it'll be presented by Commissioner Donovan. Commissioner Donovan.
The following resolution is presented for your consideration. 2013 National Day of Prayer. Whereas National Days of Prayer have been part of our country's heritage since the first one was declared by the Continental Congress in 1775, and whereas leaders of our nation have relied upon the power of prayer throughout American history, And whereas May the 2nd, 2013 marks the 62nd consecutive observance of the National Day of Prayer as mandated by both Congress and by our President in Public Law 100-307. And whereas investing in hope, transforming our nation through prayer is the theme for the 2013 National Day of Prayer. Now therefore, we, the Stanley County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim May 2, 2013 as a day of prayer in Stanley County, North Carolina, and urge our citizens to join together in their homes, places of work, and places of worship to pray for the unity of the hearts of all mankind and to continue in prayer for our state and our nation. This will be signed by our chairman, Gene McIntyre. I would also mention to the board that there will be an observance held on May 2nd, I believe, which is a Thursday. I believe it's normally at the Courthouse Square in Albemarle, and this proclamation will be read by one of the commissioners perhaps, or by somebody else at that time.
And do you make that in the form of a motion?
I do. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Donovan to approve the resolution for National Day of Prayer, second by Commissioner Dennis. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no, and the ayes have it. Thank you for that. Next agenda item is the consent agenda. We have minutes from our meeting of April 2nd. Facilities Management has a budget amendment. Library is getting ready to have a book sale, requesting to release books for that sale, and a tax refund to Home Savings Bank. Motion to accept the consent agenda is presented by Commissioner Dennis and seconded by Commissioner Shudo. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no, and the ayes have it. Open up the floor at this time for public comments of two employees and two news people. Now's your chance. Okay, starting to my right, Commissioner Lindsey. Donovan.
No comment.
No comment. Commissioner Morton.
No comment.
Commissioner Dennis.
No comment.
Commissioner Shudo.
None today.
Woo, he's talked too much already. County Attorney, Ms. Fur.
No comment, sir. Thank you.
County Manager, have you talked enough tonight?
Yeah, I have. Thank you, sir.
I have no comment. It's a pretty quiet board. I entertain a motion at this time to go into closed session to consult with the county attorney in accordance with GS 143-318, decimal 11, little a, little 3, to discuss 401 water quality permit intervention, APGI's public records request lawsuit, and to discuss an economic development in accordance with GS 143-318, 11A4. I have a motion by Commissioner Dennis. Do I have a second? Commissioner Shudo. All in favor of taking a recess and going into closed session at this time, say aye. Those opposed, no, and the ayes have it. We're recessed to go into closed session. I saw him waving his hands.